Well, let's break down now some of the key takeaways, moments from that interview with Victoria Arbiter. She's a royal commentator with extensive experience covering the British royal family. Victoria, delighted to have you with us tonight. Let's discuss what was an extraordinary and candid interview. And I'm curious for you, what stood out the most?
Good evening to you. Well, yes, it was indeed an extraordinary interview. I think we were expecting to hear from Prince Harry following the ruling, but I don't think anyone had imagined a dialogue quite as candid as this one. There's something that I do want to point out, though. Of course, this is only Prince Harry's side of the story, but there are elements which I think perhaps the public won't be clear on. And his security, obviously, being the primary issue here. Harry did say in the interview that he's the only person that has to have a royal obligation in order to get his security when he's in the UK. But that's very much in keeping with how security works for the royal family. It was give or take 15 years ago that following a cost review, the children of the monarch, their security was downgraded. It went from being 24/7 to just on engagements. Today, the only people that have round-the-clock security are the King and Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, and their children. So it is entirely possible that had Harry and Meghan stayed in the UK, they too would have lost their round-the-clock security. Now, he came across as a man rather defeated, but I also did feel that some of that language was rather inflammatory, and in particular, that suggestion that perhaps there were people behind the scenes hoping for history to repeat itself. That is bold, and that's quite an alarming thing to say.
There was this moment when he said, I don't know how much longer my father has left because he won't speak to me, but it would be nice to reconcile. Do you think that's realistic? Do you think the door could still be open there?
I think most reasonably minded people would love to see a reconciliation here, but the primary issue is trust. And I'm going to take you back to 2018. And Prince Philip, shortly before Harry and Meghan's wedding, he had hip surgery. And in the 5 weeks between that surgery and Harry and Meghan's wedding, he worked really hard to make sure that he could walk down that aisle unaided and attend their wedding. He did it. 3 years later, as he was dying in hospital, the two of them sat down with Oprah Winfrey. Then, sadly, he passed away, but then they went on to produce their Netflix documentary. Harry wrote his book. All the while, the late Queen was very poorly. We were unaware, but they certainly would have known. Now, the King is facing his own health issues, and anytime something doesn't go their way, they run to the press. Now, I appreciate they want to have an outlet, but all of these elements illustrate the fact that they cannot be trusted when it comes to conversations that are had behind palace walls. The King, to some degree, has not been able to interact with his son because of this issue with security and the judicial process in place. It would be constitutionally inappropriate for him to step in. Can you imagine the outrage if it suddenly came to light that he had pulled a few strings and wangled a special favour for his son at the taxpayer's expense? But this door for the King certainly will never be slammed shut. It is not going to be locked. I think he would dearly love to have reconciliation. He would love to see his grandchildren. But while trust remains an issue, it's a very difficult balance to find.
And Prince Harry in that interview did acknowledge some of that hurt, for example, saying some people may not forgive me, he said, with regards to his book Spare. He did seem adamant that without security, he can't return, he said, to the UK with his family. Do you see a world in which that is resolved, where we see the family also returning to the UK, even if for a temporary visit?
Well, I think ultimately that's up to Prince Harry. Now, the messaging here from the Prince is rather mixed. There have been occasions he's been in the UK. The King has offered for him to stay at Buckingham Palace. There couldn't be anywhere more secure in the UK than Buckingham Palace. He's turned that down in favour of a hotel. The family, I think, would love to see a broad reconciliation here. And Harry has talked about his desire to introduce his children to the extended family. But really, at this point, that is up to Harry. Yes, you mentioned he talks about forgiveness. Well, apologies work both ways. And I think where Harry and Meghan really could stand to have a little self-reflection and think about the role that they have played. They are accountable as well. Nobody comes out of this with a clean conscience. There have been mistakes made, whether it is through Palisades, whether it's through the royal family that are in the UK, or Harry and Meghan. There are a lot of culpable parties, but I think that means that there are an awful lot of apologies to be made as well. And Harry and Meghan don't seem inclined to own their part of this story. So I think perhaps this dialogue could open with the royal family that would enable them to go to the UK if they too would take account for some of the errors that they've made.
Okay, and briefly, what about other members of the royal family? Do you think there is the sense that the Duke of Sussex has support elsewhere?
That's very hard to say. And of course, I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone else, but really there has been betrayal after betrayal, hand grenade after hand grenade. We are talking 5 years worth of the Sussexes giving interviews. Throughout it all, beyond the recollections may vary, Buckingham Palace has kept a dignified silence. I think deep down, yes, extended members of the family would like to see a peaceful resolution here, particularly given the King is dealing with health issues and ongoing cancer treatment. But really, the first move lies with Harry and Meghan. They may not think so, but until they apologise, I don't think so.
The view there of Victoria Arbiter, royal commentator. Victoria, thank you for being with us. You're watching BBC News. We'll have more for you at the top of the hour. Do join me then if you can. Bye for now.